Good morning. It's a little bit of a gray morning out here, but it's a good day. We're getting ready for our first in-person worship in quite some time. So I'm going to do a little bit of a walkthrough with you and let you know what to expect if you choose to come out with us on Sunday. So one of the first things, there'll be somebody outside trying to direct folks, because we're not going to be using these big wooden doors behind me. So for the next little while, we're going to be using the glass office doors. And that's because these doors are accessible, so everybody can come through them. And we're trying to control the flow of traffic because we're having people sign in. So one of the first things you'll see is the doors are all going to be open. So what that means is that when you come in, you're not going to have to handle doors, you're not going to have to touch doors, and it also lets you know which way to go. So essentially, if you just follow the path of least resistance, you'll get to where you need to go quite easily. So we have our open doors. Let's go in and have a look around. So we'll come in through the welcome area, and we'll have a table here that will have volunteers. And what these folks are going to do is they're going to offer you hand sanitizer. Make sure that you're wearing a mask, because masks are required here for everybody's safety. We'll also have some face shields too, if that's a better option for you. And we have some extra masks just in case you forgot one at home. But I think we're all getting used to just carrying them with us everywhere that we go now. So when you come in, we'll go through those questions that you know and love so much, that you hear all the time, right? So have you got a fever? Have you got a cough? Have you traveled? Have you had any contact with anybody with COVID? And then the greeters are going to take your name and your number. And that's just for contact tracing, just in case we need to call you for any reason later on. So we're recording everybody who comes through the building. So once you've done the check-in process, which we hope to streamline over time, we'll be asking folks to pre-register. So either just an email or a phone call, let the office know that you plan to come. And then that'll streamline this whole process so that we just find your name and check it off on a list, and we don't have a bottleneck down here. And then you can get in and get to where you need to be. So for folks that use the lift, we're going to change a little bit the way that we do the lift. So normally you'd get in the lift and the operator would get in with you and, get some nice little visiting and chit chat on the way up. But we're going to have the operators run the lift from the outside now. And that's basically so that you don't have to be concerned about being in a closed, confined space with somebody who's maybe not in your bubble. So that's how we'll do the lift. For those who are taking the stairs, then we come up the stairs here. So we maybe take a little breather and admire the penny window. And then we continue up. So now we're in the library, moving towards the sanctuary. There's the lift over there behind me, so we'll all kind of come together through here. We do have some markings on the floor, just in case there's a little bit of a bottleneck here, but we should be able to move through fairly easily. So again, doors propped open. And now when we get to the sanctuary, at this point, we'll ask you to please wait to be seated. So this is like the service at a fine restaurant. So our greeters will have a number of greeters, and they'll be seating you. So now what that means is that you probably will not be sitting in the seat that you're normally accustomed to. And that's okay. Sometimes it's a bit of a big shock, the little things, but you can still see from wherever you are in here. And it might just give you a little bit different perspective on your church. So while you're waiting, we're not going to be passing the plate for obvious reasons of contact. So we'll just be having our offerings here. So while you're waiting to be seated, if there is a little bit of a wait, I invite you to leave your offering here. Now, the greeters, as I said, will seat you. You'll notice as you're in here that there are no hymnals, there are no Bibles. So these have all been removed. Again, just less things to touch, to transmit. So everything will be projected on the screens that we need. So our screens will have our lyrics to our hymns and announcements and everything that we need to have. Now, as I talk about the projectors, we're going to have all the hymns and the Lord's Prayer and all those kind of things will be projected as normal. But the odd thing, though, is that even though they're projected, you're not going to be able to sing them. Unfortunately, we're still not able to sing. So we are actually blessed that we're going to have a soloist. So far, with all of our recorded worships, Ian's done this great job of putting together this music for us, and it's been fantastic. But hymns are more than just beautiful music; they're prayers as well. So the human voice is actually very important. So I'm quite excited that we'll have a soloist who will be isolated from the rest of us, but she will be singing for us. She'll be giving voice to these prayers, and the lyrics will be up on the screen so that we can read along and we can pray them in our hearts, but not out loud. We're also going to be keeping our masks on throughout the duration of the worship service. So that's the recommendation of the medical officer of health here in Norfolk. So we're going to be abiding by that because of our love and care for our neighbors. So we're keeping the masks on. Another recommendation from the medical officer of health is that there be no Sunday school. So at this point, we're going to have our children and our youth gathered with us in this space. We're not going to be sending them downstairs. Now, as schools start up again, I'm hoping that this order will be reviewed by the medical officer of health, and there'll be an update coming out in the near future. But for the time being, we're abiding by the recommendations. So our kids will be with us. Now, as I've moved from masks into kids, obviously little kids are going to be exempt from wearing masks. And it's not that it wouldn't be helpful if they did, but just you can't keep a mask on a little wriggling ball of enthusiasm, so that's not going to work. So the small children will be exempt from masks, but the rest of us will be wearing them. And so because of this wearing of masks and the fact that our kids are going to be with us, I'm going to be trying to keep the worship service a little bit abbreviated. I'm not going to make it terribly long just because of the discomfort factor of sitting for an extended period of time with the masks on. So our services will be rather shorter than usual, but they will still be a worship of God. They'll be us coming together to lift our hearts to praise. Now, there are a few other things that we're going to have to keep in mind. We're already getting used to this, but I know whenever I meet somebody, my instinct is, my hand goes out. We're not going to be shaking hands. We're not going to be giving hugs, and I know we're going to be running into folks that we haven't seen for some time. And we're going to have to resist that urge to just wrap our arms around one another. So our passing the peace there's not going to be any contact for that, and we'll just have to get used to that. We'll eye contact, do what we can. And on that, on that same topic, we're not going to be having our coffee hour afterwards because obviously the food and the close mingling and stuff is not going to be a good thing. So no coffee. And then as we leave, we'll exit from the back rows out just to minimize our walking past one another. And that's essentially what it's going to be. Now, we do have a dedicated team of volunteers who are, after we're done, they're going to go through and clean. So we've got an enhanced cleaning program where all of our contact surfaces, everything's getting all disinfected quite regularly. And again, that's to minimize risk and help us all feel more comfortable here in the building. So all of this together paints a little bit of a weird picture of church. It's not going to be what we're used to. There's no doubt about that. But that's okay. Church has changed a lot over the centuries. The way that we worship, the way that we gather, these things have changed. And certainly this year, things have changed really dramatically. But the point being that we are a community that comes together in faith. We come together to hold one another in faith, to pray for one another, to encourage one another, to cast our eyes up to that highest ideal of God, and to pray that kingdom to come into existence here on earth and do what we can to enable that. So despite the fact that it's going to be a little bit of a strange experience, I'm very much looking forward to resuming what worship we can do. And I'm looking forward to, as the rules relax over time and we're able to integrate with each other the way that we would like to. Now, after all of this invitation to come back and letting you know how we're going to do things. I recognize that there are folks who are more vulnerable than others, and they're not comfortable coming back yet. And that's quite all right. You have to do what you have to do. So for the folks who are staying at home, our video worship is going to continue. So we're not going to cut that off. So I'm still going to do our worship videos so that you can still have that bit of connection while you're at home. And also we've got our small groups starting up. So if that's something, a small group that you'd be more comfortable in than a larger group, if you're not involved yet, call the office. And aside from that, I look forward to seeing those folks who are coming out on Sunday. It's going to be an exciting time.